Okay, so we've looked at colors, and we looked at some different color values like RGB, RGBA, HSL, HSLA, hexadecimal. Does anybody have questions about those? We didn't really look at hexadecimal. It's just all different ways of representing colors. And so RGB, you're setting red, green, and blue values. Hexadecimal, you're using hexadecimal. So let's just take a quick look at that. Colors. That's why those notes are good. So we could do S1 is just blue, one way to do colors. S2, RGB, 0 red, 0 green, full on blue, 0 to 255. You could set the values red, green, blue. Does that make sense? So SO2 is going to be pure blue. And then RGBA, we could set the alpha, so that has 50% transparency on this next one. And then here's hexadecimal. And this is a red, green, blue for hexadecimal. And so that's SO4, going to be the same color as SO2 because it's 0 through 9 and A, B, C, D, E, F. A, B, C, D, E, F. That's hexadecimal. And then we have HSL and HSLA, okay? So we had the colors, and we learned about the difference between bitmap and vector. So bitmap software you use like Photoshop or GIMP. Vector you use Illustrator or Inkscape. And we saw Font Awesome and how you could install Font Awesome, install a font on your machine. And we started working on extracting SVGs from Font Awesome. So we looked at colors. And then picking color combinations, we saw Adobe Color. It used to be called Cooler. Image types, raster, and bitmap. Vectors. I wonder what these are. Painting with pixels, drawing with vectors, just kind of an article. Help reinforce that. Drawing with vectors, same article. So Font Awesome performance, Font Awesome instructions on use. So that bit about Font Awesome is there's a way that people will download all of Font Awesome into a web application, but it's like 100 kilobytes. And so that kind of defeats the purpose. If you're using SVGs to be fast, why download 100 kilobytes, 110 kilobytes? Why not just use the SVGs that you want to use? Okay. Font Awesome to SVG in Adobe Illustrator, we saw that. So in CSS we call it border, in SVG we call it stroke. In CSS we call it background color, in SVG we call it fill. It's the fill. Now we're going to look at like some basic SVG stuff, how SVGs work. So here are some basic shapes made with SVGs. So we could use, here's SVG, just some intro stuff, and the width and the height sets the width and the height, 200 by 250. So if I set this 400 by 500, right, sets the kind of box in which this stuff is being viewed. And then inside that box, starting in the top left corner, graphics 0, 0 is the top left corner, like an axis. Like, you know, math, XY is the bottom left corner, 0, 0, XY axes. On graphics, top left corner, 0, 0. So here I want a rectangle. So this is one element we could use. An SVG element is its own document space. So it's outside of the normal document, right? For HTML, it's its own document. And so I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but that's the general idea. So there's a rectangle. We have SVG elements, and one of them is a rectangle. We could say rectangle starting at 10, 10, which is that corner right there. You know, the height is 30, the stroke's red, the fill's black, and the stroke width is 5. Okay, cool. That's like HTML. It's just elements with attributes and values. Here's a rectangle at 60, 10. So 60, 10, x 60, 10. And the fill is yellow, so it's that fill yellow. The stroke is black. All right, there's the stroke black. And the height is 30, width is that. And then Rx and Ry looks like it rounds the corners. All right, what if we had Rx 0? What's that do? Square. 10. Round. Ry 0. Square. I guess it needs it both for it to work. And then a circle. This one is stroke red, fill transparent. An ellipse, a line, a polyline, polygon. Right? So polyline, this one is hot pink. So it's jaggeds. So points, these different points. Polygon. And then we have path. And the path is stroke blue. This one here. So curves. So that's just like basic shapes. And if we read this article here, right, this is the same thing here. There are those basic shapes. So rectangles, x, y, the radius of the corners of the rectangle, the y radius of the corners of the rectangle. Maybe if we just took xr, rx out, it would make it just part of them be that way. Circle, ellipse, line, polyline, polygon, path, next. Pass. And I thought I had this mapped out a little bit better, where it was like, here we go, this is it. So now we're going to learn about, this is a path, okay? And if we look at paths here, it teaches this stuff. So with a path, looking for that, no, that. With a path, we could start off with path DM1010. Move to point 10. Let's look at that. It was to read. Path element is the most powerful element in SVG of basic shapes. You can use it to create lines, curves, arcs, and more. Paths create complex shapes. The shape of the path element is defined by one attribute, D. D attribute contains a series of commands and parameters used by those. Each of the commands is instantiated by a specific letter. For instance, let's move to the XY coordinates 10, 10. The move to command is called with the letter M. When the parser runs into this letter, it knows you want to move to a point, so move to 10, 10 would be M10, 10. After that, the parser begins reading for the next command. So here, this first one is just moving to 10, 10. So it's not doing anything. Just we moved to that point right there and we did nothing. So now we move to 10, 10, and then we're going to draw a line from 10, 10 to 100, 150. So 10, 10, and then to 100, x 100, y 150, we draw a line between those points. What's this one say? Somebody tell me.
From 10 to 10, draw a line to 90, 140.
Yeah. So lowercase, though, which is interesting, right? We went from uppercase to lowercase. So one is relative to the other. So if we look at this, this is move to a point, draw a line to a point. So this would be like M 10, 10, L 100, 150. Draw a line from where you're at to a point, right? So from where you're at to a point would be, instead of going from here 100 or instead of going from here 100, 150, you go from here 100, 150, right? So that's what the lowercase. L means, uppercase means from the origin. Lowercase means from where I'm at. Draw a vertical line to this y coordinate, meaning like 100. Draw a vertical line from where you're at this distance, right? So over here. Draw a horizontal line, draw a vertical line from where you're at to this distance. That should be horizontal. Uppercase is absolute, lowercase is relative to where you're at. Let me change that to horizontal. Which file is that? Here we go, horizontal. So what's this one say? Dominic. So move to 10, 10. From 10, 10, go over 90 horizontal, and then down 140 vertical. And draw a line between those 2 points. And now create a vertical line from the origin at 30. All right, so let's see what that looks like. So it went down, and then create a vertical line to this y coordinate, 30. So there's the y coordinate, 30. So from here to there, vertical line, 30. And then H20, go over horizontal 20 from where I'm currently at. What would happen if that was uppercase? It'd go to the left to 20. I just got wacky. And then move to point 2010. From where I'm at, go over 20 and down 10. And from there, do a line from that point, 90 over, 140 down. Okay? So that's just the path element. I just want you to have a little exposure to that. I know it's totally wonky, and you're never going to write this stuff, but when you look at the SVG, I want you to understand, oh, okay, I'm mapping points. And uppercase, lowercase, okay, I understand there's a difference, and the points go from here to there. So that's just giving you a little exposure to the SVG. Path and a circle. That's not very. Fill red. Path. Points. Circle 10, 10, Y, radius 2, fill red. Oh, those are those red points at each one. And the path goes to 1010, move to 1010, do a horizontal line to 90, a vertical line to 90, a horizontal line to 10, and then a line back to 1010. I don't know where the fill comes from for the black on that path. I don't know. And then here's closing the path. Oh, that's just another way you could do it. Relative commands, cubic Bezier, fill and stroke, fill purple, stroke width 5, stroke blue, stroke blue. And different ends you could choose. Butt, square, round. This is butt, this is square, this is round. More examples of those. About SVG. SVG is XML. XML describing an image. XML is case sensitive. You must close all tags. Attribute values must be inside quotes. XML header lines, the prologue, example XML version, should be removed when you're embedding an SVG, an HTML page, or another SVG. Well-formed XML documents contain only one prologue. The XML prologue is a section at the beginning of an XML document. So the prologue should be removed when embedding SVGs if you're embedding one SVG inside another. When embedding SVGs inside, you could keep the prologue lines. The HTML parser in the browser will ignore them. The SVG element is a root element. The doc declaration should be left off, leads to more problems than it solves. Don't use this. Use this, SVG version, XML&S, viewbox, or this, base profile, pull, full, and that other stuff. Version and base profile identify the version of the SVG and should always be used instead of DTD. The order of rendering of elements matters. Later elements are rendered atop previous elements. Avoid the inline style attribute where possible, not this, but this. Specify units when assigning lengths to properties. The only way to avoid problems is to always specify a unit when assigning lengths to properties. Happily in SVG, PX units are defined to be equivalent to the units established by the coordinate system. Whenever you would otherwise have omitted the unit from the length assigned to a property, use PX unit instead. Use 20 pixels, 2 pixels. According to SVG, there are only 8 properties that accept the length value. Stroke width, stroke dash offset, font size, baseline kerning, letter spacing, word spacing. MDN does not include pixel units in their examples. I have not added them to MDN's examples. MDN examples are more recent than JWatt's article. Perhaps this isn't needed anymore. File types SVG and SVGZ. I know I'm totally boring you guys to death with SVG. It's going to pay off, I promise you. And you sound stuffy. So now we're getting back to viewbox. So no viewbox. Viewbox smaller, width and height 200, viewbox smaller. Viewbox larger. Kind of interesting. You saw viewport earlier. This is kind of like viewport. So here the width and height of what we're showing is bigger than the view box. Here the width and height of what we're showing is smaller than the view box. And that makes sense, right? So I was wondering, what kind is a block level or inline display element? And here it puts it right in line. It's kind of interesting to look at. So here is a rectangle. I gave it an ID. So ID amaze version 1 XMLNS, and then this is a root level element, right? The SVG, just like HTML is a root level element. And then I put in that rectangle, and I have the ID amaze, and then I come over here and I have split vertically amaze, which targets that, and border 20 pix groove gold. Let's see what happens. So put a border around that element. And I did a hover on that SVG. So the icon has an ID, and stroke and fill, right? Those are SVG. It's not border and background color, it's stroke and fill. And I have a hover, and that's cool. I could change my SVGs with CSS. I'll do this till you guys wake up a little bit. Or start having seizures. And that's really nice. Like this. So class, SVG class, icon, gave it a class. Version, XMLS, view box 100 by 100. And then in that view box, I have this path. And we know path now, and all SVG needs to be self-closing, or needs to close. So that's why we have that slash there. So here's the path, and then we say D, draw, basically, move to this point, and then C, I don't know what C does, right? Maybe circle or something, 0, 1.5, it's a curve, I guess. And then V, vertical line, right? And then C, another curve. And then H, horizontal line. Oh, cool, I kind of understand this stuff now. I can make a little sense of it. And it's got icon path, so my CSS, right, icon path, the stroke is black, the fill is red, but when I hover, stroke is blue and fill is yellow. Okay, cool. And then I have icon SVG. I gave it a width and a height right from here, and 800 by 800. So the view box is 100, and I'm making 800 by 800. So here's the code. I'm going to paste this code up to, because you all don't have Illustrator on your machines, unfortunately. And that's an important first part. I'm going to paste this code because if you guys don't start coding, I'm concerned you're going to die. I'm going to paste this code in assignments. Week 15, SVG. Make these binoculars change color when the mouse hovers over them. So right now, I want you to recreate this page. Okay?